The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Buongiorno.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io.
Top of the evening.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Fed's new instant payment system could be trouble for PayPal and Venmo. The Fed's goal is to connect 9,000 financial institutions nationwide. Yes, the U.S. Federal Reserve officially launched FedNow, a new system rolling out to 35 early adopting banks and credit unions for the processing of instant payments between financial institutions. The Fed's goal is to eventually connect more than 9,000 banks and credit unions nationwide, tossing out the old payment system and support a faster payment processing for all U.S. institutions. Dan Eve, what do you think about the Federal Reserve's new system that may challenge PayPal, Venmo, and maybe even Bitcoin?
Well, FedNow does actually sound a lot cooler than like Worldcoin. That's for sure. Obviously, they're two different things, but the traditional banking system has got to innovate, and it's got to stay alive and stay relevant. I don't think it's going to be it's not real. Obviously, it's not competition for Bitcoin. Probably more impact on like stable coins. But it could put, I think, pressure on the regulators to, if FedNow's sort of doing, makes payments a lot more kind of slimlined, then the regulators could get a bit more strict with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But also the other thing is that I suppose if FedNow's Act comes out and it's actually quite ninja, then it could spark more innovation within Bitcoin to kind of keep up with the fact that they could end up turning around and go, oh well, FedNow settles instantly, whereas Bitcoin takes 10 minutes. So then there becomes this kind of tech war between the FedNow and Bitcoin. So to improve, could end up improving speed, transaction speed and scalability, and also. Yes, the other thing is that about the PayPal and stuff like that. I mean, they've steadily been kind of growing in user base. However, they are going to be impacted by a much faster way of transacting between banks, and banks are getting a lot better at doing these kind of services. In the UK, you've got pay by text message, pay by this, pay by that. And it kind of cuts out some of the need of actually using a service like PayPal, especially as they've brought down their fees, I think. But at least for certain users, but it's still probably a bigger threat to PayPal than it is, say, to Bitcoin and stuff. But if they end up, we haven't talked about their architecture, right, of what they're using. So are they going to actually end up using a blockchain to make sure that things are settled, solving the double spend problem, right? Because that's what we've got in all these other current financial institutions. You still got potential for double spend problems. Now, are they going to use a blockchain to counter that? They haven't really gone into that much level of detail, but yeah, I don't see that. It's definitely not a threat to Bitcoin. It's more of a threat to all the kind of Venmos and PayPals and all these other ones, and they're just going to have just as much control over your bank account. So that's why you should stick to Bitcoin.
Josh Shigala, it seems one by one we're losing all of our Bitcoin talking points. We used to say you could pay with your phone. Now I use Apple Pay to pay with my phone. We used to bag on the SWIFT system and say, oh, it takes so long to settle money when you send money between your bank accounts. And now the Federal Reserve is looking to fix that. Will this affect Bitcoin?
Look, the thing is that Bitcoin was produced for many reasons. One of the main reasons that a lot of people forget about is to fight against infinite money supply. The fact that there is only 21 million takes away the power to debase the money supply, basically ruining when you put work, your whole life's work into something to save, the state can just destroy those savings by printing more. And so this is one thing that FedNow can't take. Now, the other thing to mention here, that this is an extremely dangerous thing. And what I don't like is that there's no conversation in mainstream media about if they should even do this. There's no sort of talk by a government to say, should they do this? Because when your bank right now does a transaction, when you pay someone at the shop, your shop's bank and your bank basically have an IOU. So your bank, let's say it's Bank A, might have 1,000 IOUs to Bank B, equaling, let's say, $1 million. And Bank B might have 200,000 owing to Bank A. And at the end of the day, those amounts go up to the Fed right now to get settled in one single transaction. And the Fed goes, okay, you owe Bank B just 800K because they owe you 200. So you owe them $1 million, they owe you 200. So you just have to send 800. So it's one transaction, everything's done. Now, what happens here is that the Fed don't know what made up those millions. And the Fed the government would need to go through court and get subpoenas and all sorts of stuff to really find out everybody's single transactions, or it just is not possible, especially with privacy laws and this and that and the other. There's due process involved. With FedNow, the Fed gets an eyesight into every single transaction down to the cent through what's going where and being settled in real time. This is extremely, extremely dangerous, because the next step to this is, oh, hey, there's another lockdown and you can't spend money after 15 minutes, or we want to make a 15-minute city, you can't spend, or there's an obesity epidemic, you've had your ration of sugar this month, or the carbon has been used, you're not allowed to eat another steak, you're only allowed one a week, or whatever it is. Whether you believe like those things or not, what matters is that we have due process in place and not give governments that much control. Because maybe you like the government that bans beef because of global warming or whatever your political leaning is, but the next government that might come along might not like people with blue eyes or whatever. So the whole point is to always restrict power, especially when it comes to money, because money is the end game of power. Money controls the whole game. And if that's the kingpin and they control that kingpin about every single transaction, it's extremely dangerous. And FedNow, they aren't even discussing that. They're just saying, oh, look, it's an upgrade. It's beautiful. And now you get real time. Well, we already have real time, by the way, with Venmo, PayPal. It's nothing new. We already have mobile payments. We don't get anything better from this, but they get something better. They get infinite control. So I don't see where the outrage is from Americans, and there should be, but there's not even from the right, and nothing from the left, obviously. So I just don't understand why that is, and it's quite interesting to me to see that there's just no outrage.
Well, as you know, Josh, the Federal Reserve is just about as federal as Federal Express. Right? We don't really have control of it. The United States has the ability to appoint the director of the board, not much else. So even if the people were interested in it, it's not like there's going to be a vote for this one way or the other, either at a proposition system or nationally in the Senate or the president or anything like that. So there's an interesting banking system that we have here in the US. It's amazing. And what I'm amazed about is even the smaller institutions aren't up in arms about this. I mean, basically what's happening here right now is a coup from taking all power from all banks into one private bank, the Federal Reserve. And this is outrageous. It's outrageous that it's not getting talked about. It's just weird that rather they're talking about UFOs, and maybe that's why they're bringing up the whole UFO thing right now, just to sort of, hey, look over here, everyone, because, obviously there's freaking UFO. I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, it's just logical. There's just too much space out there. But all of a sudden, why now? Why release it now? What's the big
anyway, there's something up.
What else I think is interesting about this, Josh? It kind of reminds me of when Apple comes in and takes out these third-party applications. PayPal, Venmo, these are massive businesses that exist on payments as well as Visa and MasterCard. In a way, this kind of threatens them as well. If you just use your bank now and you go through FedNow, you don't use any of these systems. It's strange that they would be so kind of anti-competitive, right? Obviously, the Fed is going to be cheaper, going to be more accepted. It's going to be very difficult. Think about Discover Card or Amex or one of these smaller payment systems. It's very strange to see them just openly crush their business in an Apple manner.
Yeah, and sorry, Dan, I just want to quickly add while it's there is that in another Apple way, they're just not calling it CBDC. Just like Apple don't call it VR, they call it Apple Vision Pro, or they don't call it a HD screen or whatever they call it, whatever Retina. They just rebrand it FedNow. They never even mention CBDC, but actually in the back end, it has to be a mini internal blockchain, because otherwise there's one big honeypot. If they get hacked, it's an extreme risk. And what Satoshi solved was the ability to shard all that data in a way that's secure, where they can hash, even if it's 3 computers next to each other, at least there's a chain just next to each other, an internal blockchain. And it's
I love the idea of them if they didn't use a blockchain. It reminds me of a change tip back in the day. Everyone was up in arms. We were like, this isn't Bitcoin. They have a database, they have an Excel spreadsheet. It's a huge risk to everyone because of how complex it'll get and how out of control it'll get quickly. If they don't have that infrastructure, if they don't have that blockchain, this could be a real cascading disaster where all of your money gets sent to random addresses and you just have no idea what happened to your funds.
To Josh's point about the how it's hitting the smaller players, and that's because the biggest players are the banks are much bigger than the smaller players, those payment processes that sit over the top. So and they're probably the most embedded within all the politics, all the shoulder to shoulder kind of backhander stuff. They're the ones that are going to be the most, paid up and intertwined in all the lobbying. So they probably have the power. I can see it as kind of being a federation, right? Some sort of federated, not side chain, but some sort of, a federation of signers, right? So each bank becomes a signer, and perhaps they end up, they have a certain number of nodes. Each bank is a node, something crazy like that. But yeah,
I don't think it'll even be that. I think it'll literally be 3 servers sitting probably in the same room, signing one after the other, so that a hacker would have to hack all 3 servers, which is better than one. But
surely they would learn from Bitcoin's positives of Bitcoin, that decentralization to a certain extent is going to provide some of that additional.
It doesn't scale fast enough.
No, but not talking about full decentralization. I'm talking about having a federation of signers rather than.
Yeah. Well, if you're power hungry, what do you want to do? You want to give power away to a bunch of people, a different federation? No, you want to control that power. Yes. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Obviously, you would do it for security reasons. That would be the major reason. But what you're giving away for that security, which is paramount, actually, because once there's one breach, the whole thing is screwed. But if that for that security, they're giving away power, which means, hey, we want to change this or upgrade this, and one bank says no, or the banks get together and say no. Actually, you've taken all our business. Now none of the transactions are going through us; they're all going through you. So we're gonna, I don't know, sabotage this or whatever.
Yeah, but Federation would take the power out of the Fed, and that's what that's what they want. That's the reason why they're doing this, is for power.
Power.
Well, and as Josh said, they can't fix that there's a limited number of Bitcoin and an unlimited number of dollars. As the man said, there's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. Let's move on to the exit question, predicting against the travel 8 ball, which is very difficult to see. So I'll be using a light here. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? Dan Eve.
Oh, I'm on a FedNow downer. I think it's going to be slightly lower.
Josh Shigala.
I think it'll be up as Worldcoin starts getting promoted every freaking where. You know, the Sam
It's
Altman.
WorldCoin 2, but we'll talk about that more later. It's a show full of scary power grabs, as we've said, as Josh has said. Here we go, asking the Magic 8 Ball, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? There's a lot of bubbles. It's very hard to see. Most likely, the ball has spoken. So it's looking good for next week. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, crypto rapper Razzlekhan husband reach plea deal over Bitfinex hack laundering. The couple was accused of laundering billions of dollars of cryptocurrency stolen from the 2016 virtual currency exchange Bitfinex, have entered into a plea agreement. Still no details on if they are the hackers themselves or how they ended up with the billions of dollars of money to launder, which they did in inartful ways like buying PlayStations at Walmart and other nonsense. Josh Shigala, what do you think about Razzlekhan, the rapper who's like Genghis Khan with a little bit of razzle, and her husband who laundered this money and now are going down for it? It seems to me there's obviously missing some hackers here, but we'll see.
Well, Genghis Khan had spread his DNA everywhere. Apparently, most people in China now have some Genghis Khan genes or something like that. But yeah, I kind of wish our internal rapper here, the crypto raptor, would have gotten some of these gains. To me, the whole story is so perplexing. It's so perplexing because these two just are total clowns, like total clowns. But I don't believe that some big mafia stole the money and gave it to them to launder. Like, who does that? Why would you do that? You just wouldn't. You would figure that out somehow. You'd get an internal person in. You wouldn't give it to some
I think
weird
that's
clown.
the plot of a movie, Josh. Like the person's supposed to show up at the shop, but they give the wrong person the suitcase full of money. And then these two crazy kids go out there and they've got millions, if not billions of dollars and no plan to launder it. This Walmart plan is a terrible plan. It's bizarre. I mean, we need to know, like, was the hacker their next door neighbor? Was it a friend from college? They met him at a road stop somewhere. Like, millions of dollars, and this hack just goes down. Yeah, it's disastrous.
It's bizarre. I think what happened was he was a little bit clever. He was mucking around with like some sort of hacking tools on Linux and found some vulnerability, took it, went, what the hell now? And then she just started living the high life. And then they got busted because Bitcoin's extremely traceable. So I don't know. The whole story is so weird, and it's a great one to follow. I love it, and I hope one day.
Well, remember the previous guy who was hiding his millions of dollars in like a Cheetos tin underneath the house. He discovered a bug in Mt. Gox, which is so simple it's hardly a bug, and I don't think it was hacking. He just pushed withdraw like a dozen times or something, and each time he pushed withdraw, he got more coins. So he just kept kind of running the coins through and back, and then the exploit stopped and he had all this money. So maybe these Razzlekhan and Liechtenstein are the same thing. They figured out how to push the refresh button at the right time and ended up with $1 billion, which again is a story in itself that we really need to hear. And if we're going to get a plea deal, I want to know who the hacker is. I want to know, or if they don't know anything, I want to know what they don't know. I want to know the whole thing.
I absolutely agree with you. That is exactly what happened. They found some weird exploit and just went, oh, wow, and refreshed, because these people are daft. I mean, he has a little bit of tech knowledge, so maybe he's a little bit deeper and ran up a version of hacking Linux, which is like designed to like pen test. But weird story, love it, want to hear more. It's strange. What I would like to see though is that Bitfinex sort of screwed over their users a little bit, because what they did, for those that don't know, they tokenized the losses back then. And they said, okay, here's a token which represents your lost Bitcoin, and we'll pay you back by us running the exchange. The profits that we make will pay out in dividends. This was all before, not asking SEC or anything like that, which I think is totally cool. I thought it was really awesome what they did, actually, because it was better than Mt. Gox. What we got is still nothing, basically nothing, just constant lawyers chomping away at all the creditors' funds for years. At least Bitfinex was like, let's think outside the box, let's issue a token and pay it back. And they did, right? But what happened was that Bitcoin tanked like crazy. No, their token tanked like crazy when Bitcoin tanked. And then they bought their tokens back. They bought their tokens back from all these creditors for pennies on the dollar when the market crashed. And you know, when the market crashed, when it's red, everything's red, right? So was their token. And then when they bought it back, Bitcoin started going back up. They're debt free. Yay, everyone, like, you can't fight because you got actually the token and you signed away your rights for anything in the future. So now that they found the money, they're like, well, you've already been paid back in these tokens that actually just tanked and we bought back for pennies on the dollar. It's a weird story. Definitely film material. I would love to see the same guy that made The Big Short run this film.
It is an incredible story, Josh, of Bitfinex printing the tokens and coming out ahead, most of their customers coming out behind. And I agree, it was the wild, wild west, and they decided a different way to do it than Mt. Gox. And it seems so far like it's worked out. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Razzlekhan, soon to be wrapping from prison, and this bizarre, bizarre story?
Well, it was back then, it was what, $77 million, I think they said. So it wasn't the 3 billion it was today, and what, 4.5 billion when they actually got caught with it. So the story that they were kind of giving it to launder seems like fractionally more believable. But yeah, I'm leaning towards like what you guys have said, that they found some sort of minor exploit in the website. Maybe he's got some hacking skills behind him. Maybe he just did something that had just accidentally kept on, the cash machine, he just kept on spilling out and he just kept on withdrawing, that sort of thing. But the whole story about how they got caught, like ordering pizzas and PlayStations and stuff like that, it's just insane, especially when you can use all sorts of mixers to do this stuff. Rather, there's so many services you can go cross-chain. You could switch from, use services like Change Now and stuff like that to go from one chain to another altogether. And it just seems strikingly weird how they had all this money underneath them and they weren't able to kind of keep themselves kind of out of the public eye.
You can't, man. You can't. With that much money, you can never hide it because you're gonna screw it up. You're gonna screw it up. Basically,
it is funny how it's similar to the Cheetos guy, where he had all this money, but he couldn't spend it. They had all this money. They're not buying Lambos. They're not buying expensive apartments, buying PlayStations and pizza.
Such idiot. I mean, I'm like, if you find an exploit that companies like Bitfinex are willing to pay you a good amount of money, enough to like life-changing money. Instead, they were just greedy, which meant they couldn't spend any of it. And once they did, they got busted. Now they'll spend their time in prison. Instead, they could have been white hat hackers, got paid a nice big ransom, and or not ransom, like a bounty, and gave most of 99% of the money back, kept a couple of mil, and be loving life. Like, it's just stupid. These are clowns, really.
Yeah, it's strange. I think they do seem like a proper comedy duo. I certainly wouldn't put them in charge of trying to launder not 3 billion, let alone 77 million, let alone obviously 3 billion. But obviously the price of Bitcoin just exploded after they were given it. So maybe what you would have thought that the person who even gave them the money would have to launder, if it wasn't actually them who did it, would be trying to do them more research themselves on how they could kind of help launder this money, or it just seems like it's crazy. I think it's got to be them who actually did the initial hack, but whether there'll be any evidence for it, you won't find out. And also the plea deal, like what are they, what's going to come out of the plea deal? Are they going to have some information? Maybe it could be something even more crazy, like it was an insider at Bitfinex who kind of helped fork the money out to them, and that's part of the plea deal.
Well, the other crazy part of this story is And this is all speculation. So, please don't sue me, Bitfinex, because it's not real. It's just my thoughts. But you could, they also brought out Tether. And so they could effectively print as much Tether as they want, say that they have that money in the bank, and buy actual Bitcoin back with it. So when they, the thing with Tether is that we've gone full circle. We've gone, yay, let's decentralize the power. Yay, Bitcoin, 21 million. And then, oh yeah, we got this thing called Tether now, which is like, oh, we can, print as much as we want and say we have that. And everyone's like, yeah. It's like, guys, if you're in crypto, yeah, there's Lambos and moons, but there's also the original philosophy of freedom and accountability and money, programmability and money. All that stuff is nice, but the fact of the matter is, always bring it back to first principles. We need scarce, infinitely divisible scarce currency. And this is what we have with Bitcoin, and it's beautiful.
They also bought they had loads of gold, right? That they found excavated in California, like some sort of treasure hunt, Fed treasure hunt. What I found interesting about this is that they said they're seeking to have the couple forfeit the assets, which includes gold excavated in California. So by the term seeking to have them forfeit the assets, does that mean that they still don't actually have hold of the Bitcoin? They just think that they've got, it kind of muddied the water a bit, the way it reported on the fact they were applying to forfeit the Bitcoin, like it wasn't in their possession yet, the authorities. But isn't it a shame?
You've got to figure as part of the plea deal, they have to give up the money.
Yeah.
Like if they haven't already, then they're holding it back, and they'll say, okay, less years, here's the money.
Imagine, Josh, if they'd have used that Bitcoin to buy gold from eToro. From Gold Toro. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, would have been good. But they would have been busted too.
Yeah.
But crazy story. Want to see a film? Hit the thumbs up, everybody. Smash it.
Thumbs up down below. Continuing the show while we're on tour in Europe. And it also reminds me, Josh, of this great Ron Howard movie, The Paper. And Marissa Tomei says, these guys lost $77 million of the mob's money. Dumb fellas. So exit question, I think you guys are all going to agree here, but are these actually the hackers? Did they find some exploit and hack it themselves? Or do we still have a very exciting shadowy figure out there who hacked Bitfinex? Josh Shigala, what do you think?
Yeah.
Dan, Eve, do you agree? Are they the hackers?
Yeah, I think they are. And whether you can call them hackers or, as you said, like, accidental kind of exploiters, like, yeah, I think that's it.
I'm still holding out for a shit. Yeah, or I still think there'd be a shadowy hacker behind this, or like I think Josh had said, someone perhaps allegedly, we have no information on this, inside of Bitfinex helping them do this. There's usually an inside man, maybe part of the plea deal, they give that guy up or that woman or whoever it is, or maybe the shadowy hacker. Maybe they don't even know. It's a fascinating story. I agree with Josh. I want to see the movie. Let's move on. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got brand new interviews with Vlad Costa and Peter Todd, as well as the recent Bitcoin group episodes and much more at worldcryptonetwork.com. All the episodes are free with no ads. Just click right on them and they start at worldcryptonetwork.com or on YouTube. Issue 3, Worldcoin 2. Let's make sure we get the 2 in there. Could enable a wider distribution of crypto than even Bitcoin. Boy, taking the press release right there and put it in the headline, Coindesk. Really taking some risks there. Let's go over to this science and tech from ArtNet News. Nefarious data collection masking as public art. An AI company has placed mirrored spears around the world in a massive eye scanning project. Worldcoin 2's effort has been criticized by the likes of Edward Snowden, who tweeted, "Don't catalog eyeballs." Of course, Worldcoin 2 claims that the iris scanner will throw out the iris scanning information, making a hash from that, and then keeping the hash. I think Snowden and other smart people on Twitter have said instantly, then you could use the hash to mask the iris later when you catch them like a criminal or whatever. You could match them right up. The bounty for giving up your eyeballs is, I think, 1 Worldcoin. So, or Worldcoin 2. So if you think that's going to be worth a Bitcoin, maybe you're getting 20,000, 30,000. And of course, we all know in the past that there was a Worldcoin, WDC, and that it's now listed on Dead Coins out here at 99 Bitcoin. It has inactive development, inactive Twitter, low volume, and not listed on exchanges. But if you check it out here, out on CoinMarketCap, it still has a market cap of around $2 million. My brother was saying this is one of the top 10 blockchains, longest running blockchains. It's worth 0.0152 cents. This was the original Worldcoin. For whatever reason, Sam Altman, the creator of OpenAI, has decided, among other things, that he can just take the name of an old coin. So Mega Coin, Fast Coin, all the Bitcoin 2, you better watch out. They're just going to take your name. Dan, Eve, what do you think of Worldcoin and their fascinating new eyeball scanning orb?
Well, the first thing about it is Worldcoin sounds scammy. It just sounds
so
like
bad, isn't it?
OneCoin. It just sounds like OneCoin, Worldcoin. It's like a, I almost think that just putting the word coin in something now is just such a rip-off of Bitcoin, right? It's, apart from Dogecoin, they get a pass because it's a funny dog. But they could have chosen something that's a bit more original. To their statement that, it could enable a wider distribution of crypto than Bitcoin. Now, they could be onto something there, but I'm not saying it's in any way comparable or good or anything like Bitcoin, because this is just literally a token on like OP, the Ethereum layer 2. But it's rolling out.
Yeah, they started off on Polygon, but they switched to Optimism.
Right, there you go. So it's on Optimism, right? And the fact is that it's got this kind of feel to it, though it's got the OneCoin feel, right? It's got this, although it's not MLM, it just feels that way. They've obviously got this sort of community raving about it, and this huge sort of building of community where they've got hundreds of thousands of people queuing up around the world right now to get their irises scanned. There is, I can imagine it's going to have a wide net of users. And because of the fact that, ChatGPT, this was actually 2021, I think they did the funding for this. So it was actually before ChatGPT was kind of known to the open world. But the ChatGPT's got apparently 100 million users right now, right? So you can see how fast these things can spread. And if you're giving people, tokens for scanning their irises, a lot of people who haven't sort of been open to the idea of privacy being preserved are quite happy to go and just scan their irises like lambs to the slaughter, and to give their data away. And as Snowden pointed out, they may destroy your data, but they have a hash of your data, which is your data. Like, that's the thing, isn't it? And so someone has access to your data. That's the long of the short. But you can muddle words, but and say that you destroyed the actual thing, but they know that it's your data, because when they scan your iris again, they can tell that it's you because they've got the hash of it. What would have been cool, to a certain extent, right, is if maybe they use the Lightning Network or something, which has probably got 100 times more scalability than say OP, and uses Bitcoin. But they actually went for a kind of the token route, which is a bit kind of sad. The tokenomics on it are awful as well. Geez, like, they've given themselves a valuation of like a total distribution valuation right now of like, it's like 22 billion or something. Imagine just being able to theorize something out of thin air and just say that the total value is going to be it may be 400 million now or whatever it is. Even that's, really high, but it's going to be 22 billion, the total supply. And it's got
Well, hang on. No, the initial, it says in the white paper, initial total supply is 10 billion. So they can just release more.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it sounds
insane.
like that's they haven't gone into details, right, about how they're going to do this AI powered UBI, right? So maybe that's actually part of it. The AI powered UBI is just an infinite inflation. So once they've hit the distribution of the full distribution, which is sounding like it's mainly going to investors anyway, but once they've hit the full distribution, people like Sam Bankman-Fried, for example, and Free Arrow Capital, so some real good solid investors behind it. They are just going to they're going to fund this UBI by just printing more of this Worldcoin. Worldcoin. Geez, I can't even say it without laughing. Yeah. So, and these, the devices, when you think about how scary this is, it's a 6.2 pound biometric imaging device. It's custom built to verify humanness in a secure way, and passers-by need only gaze into its mirrored surface and it will scan their retina and take their biometrics. Now, the scary thing about that is that it's so small and portable that it could literally be like, they could put it behind like a mirror, right, or something like that, where if they could put it behind mirrors in toilets and scan the irises of everyone who goes to the toilet, right? This could be there could be lots of hidden ways as how they're collecting this information. And I'm not saying that maybe I'm not saying that they would do it as a company specifically, but then other people might get hold of these orbs, and if it becomes some sort of scheme where you scan people's retinas and you get Worldcoin commission for helping scan people, then that can be abused and just used all nefariously. I did see a video of I think, was it Crypto Graffiti, who, I don't know if he got invited to the offices, but basically stole a Worldcoin orb and destroyed it, which was that seemed pretty cool. But there's a good side of a certain part of this that sounds like it's got good nature to it, like the fact that they're using this identity to combat AI deepfakes and things like that. We've often talked about how fast AI is advancing and how hard it's going to be to tell the difference between fake Donald Trump playing like World of Warcraft or whatever that's been simulated and actual Donald Trump, and indeed anyone else. So protecting your own identity. So one argument for this that they're saying is to protect your own identity by giving us your identity, which seems a bit freaky in a way, because to me it just sounds crazy, but it's obviously tickling people's gizzards, and they're all lining up to get their irises scanned. I mean, welcome to 2023. It's been a crazy few years, isn't it?
I'm really surprised it's not Facebook or Apple or one of the social networks going after it. We've talked about it before, how as an idea, the internet with its wide openness, not being based on real names, not being tied to an identity, allows for this kind of hacking and bad behavior and all these things. And if we start it over again, maybe we do it differently, have a different architecture. But I'm also just kind of struck, and I'm sure Josh is going to be, by the idea that, like Dan said, you could put these things in the open, and they're saying they're having them in public places now, as the other article said, not the Coindesk article, and that you as a normal person doesn't have a lot of information, look through this thing for a minute and they could steal your identity. It's almost as bad as like if you then talked to it and then it took a picture of you, and then it could make a total copy of you, and your trip to the market becomes this AI Black Mirror nightmare where like things get worse and worse for you after you got your irises scanned, and it takes 10 seconds. It's this 10 seconds to destroy your life forever, theoretically, or it's fine and it's just a really great service. But like Dan was talking about, and I instantly thought, I was like, what a sweet database to hack. Once you get all those hashes of everybody's eyeballs and their names, you just wait for it to come up again in the next iris scanning system, or you sell that database to someone else, or it leaks on the internet and everybody can download it, like the Mt. Gox data was on Pirate Bay for a while. It's just very scary. It's the kind of thing you can't roll back, you can't fix once you give up your biometric data, as Snowden and others have said. And I'm, of course, reminded by the great cartoon strip, soon to be a TV show, called Strange Planet. And they're the kind of these aliens, and they try to understand Earth. And this one says, transport me to the orb match. And usually when they say orb, they mean ball. And they're talking here about take me out to the ball game. So it's just a funny use of the word orb, trying to make some kind of really horrifying sci-fi thing sound like nothing. Josh, what do you think? People are out there on the street. Should they give up their iris scans to get the free Worldcoin? What if it's as big as Bitcoin? Everybody could use 20 or 30K, right?
This is the thing that actually the chat just stole my talking point, funnily enough, because I was thinking the exact same thing. The trouble is, all these eventually, first they'll take the eyes, then they'll take the face, then that will get stolen. Now we can't use the face, we need to use a hand, or we need to use a thumb thing, and then that gets stolen. The last thing you'll have left is every time you want a bank account, oh, excuse me, scan your butthole. Oh yeah, I just need to open a bank account. Here you go. Beep. All right. Yep. Okay. Yep. All right. That's you, Josh. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. And then that will be stolen too by the porn industry. So it's just it's ridiculous. We're setting ourselves up here. We cannot let our biometrics be stolen, like be taken bit by bit like this. It's really, really hard. But someone brought it up to me yesterday because I was complaining about it. And they're like, "Well, have you given your KYC to other exchanges?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of had. Yeah, you know." Ooh. And he was right, you know, and it was like touche, because there's just something creepy about putting your iris into this ball. And it's not just your iris, by the way. For them to attach the iris to you or the hash to you, they need obviously your name and your address and your details. So that also is in there. What, does that get hashed? No, because they need some data. And so
and once they have all that, Josh, they can buy the rest of your information from Amazon, from the voter databases, from all the other various things that we've talked about, how politicians now have access to an incredible amount of demographic information about you. Target knows that your daughter's pregnant before you do. And let's throw into that, we now have your iris scan. It's just getting creepy out there.
Oh yeah. And so the thing is that there is a problem coming up. And knowing that someone is human online is a problem, but they don't even solve that, because I can just go onto Optimism and buy some Worldcoin now. So I can actually use their silly Worldcoin without my identity. So I don't quite understand where this is going. Maybe the chat can tell me, can I not send that if I haven't registered? Do I need a special wallet? Like, how is it a smart contract wallet? So
presumably, if they had a service like Worldcoin Facebook, you wouldn't be able to log in without your iris scan. I don't know how that works with money and the blockchain, but if I had your iris scan, that's what I would do. I would use it for logins and things.
Well, as Jack said, I think they're using zero knowledge proof. So apparently they're not. You're not kind of giving your core data. You're just, I'm not sure how it works. You just get like a wallet that's attached to your eyes or something, private key that's attached to your eyes. But then we've got the same old issue of like, what happens if you lose your private key? Like, And if anyone's done the economics on these like UBI, you see straight away that it doesn't work, because the inflation is ridiculous on them. You get destroyed every week. There's a destruction of values so far beyond anything you believe. And we saw a simple version of this during the pandemic, when governments around the world gave just $1,300 to every single person. And we're seeing the fallout of that now with massive price hikes in everything, because they literally printed trillions of dollars for the first time to do this. Now, if you did that every week, well, you just basically wouldn't have any value left. It would just be destroyed. So the economics are foul and not thought out. The idea is dumb. Look, there is some simple good thinking behind this, and that is, who the heck is human online anymore? Because we far surpassed the Turing test. In fact, AI needs to dumb itself down to pass the Turing test now, because you can tell it's AI because it's just too damn clever. So now, like, we're at the point of, if we need to do business, it's so easy to get scammed. It's so like, we've opened a freaking Pandora's box with these LLMs. Like, the world is changing massively quick, like just ridiculously fast, and old people already can't keep up. I can barely keep up,
The young might be able to, probably not. I just think that there is a problem to be solved here, but I don't know if it's solvable through this sort of iris scanning or biometrics. I think it's solvable purely through some of the cypherpunk original ideas, which was ring of trust sort of thing, where you start to build a reputation behind an avatar. And if that avatar is compromised, then you can kill it and start a new one. But it's not your flesh and blood. You're removed, one removed. So people can't steal you. All they can do is steal the avatar. And this is the only way we can really do this. This whole thing of UBIs, I think it's a farce. It's not well understood. It's not well explained. It's just lazy intellectual laziness from the left and intellectual laziness from the right, saying that there's always going to be jobs. I think there isn't going to always be jobs. We're heading towards a very, very fast as well joblessness, and something needs to be thought of. But UBI definitely isn't the answer, and neither is Worldcoin. And not only that, Worldcoin will be absolutely volatile. I mean, we at the Standard will, maybe if it gets big enough volume, we can allow it to be used as collateral, and people can borrow then Euro, Euro-S or USDS or one of these stables, or even something pegged to gold. But in and of itself, Worldcoin, I don't see how it's possibly used, and why not use Litecoin or Bitcoin or anything else? I don't understand.
Well, are we going to see this? Well, maybe not with Worldcoin, but with iris, like retina scanning, right? Was it Minority Report where he ended up he had to change his like eyeballs? We'll see. Like, you know, that's.
I remember.
I think it's Minority.
I think he had fake eyeballs or contact lenses, and then of course in Demolition Man they destroyed the iris scan. The guy just pulls out his eye and he has it on a scalpel and he holds it up to the pen,
doesn't he? Incredible. Yeah, so the iris scanning, still, even that doesn't seem like it's going to be the most secure, because you could effectively maybe not change your eye. I'm sure you could.
Butthole scanning, you know, at least you've got a cover across there naturally.
Rectal.
And again, back to Vonnegut. He drew the picture in the book of the asshole, the starfish, he called it. And like Josh is saying, they are very unique and very scannable, like the retina. I want to talk a little bit about how this is Sam Altman. And this is, I don't know very much about the guy, but he created or is behind OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. And I don't know that we really trust ChatGPT or how it was built, in the same way that Midjourney was built by kind of stealing all these art projects and then putting them together into this AI. ChatGPT was built by stealing, I assume, I don't know, all of the information on the web, similar to Google, downloading it and searching for those deep links in the early days. But this guy, his credibility is that he's downloaded the internet, reorganized it into ChatGPT, which is a very useful tool. But I don't know if that leads to, I want him to have my irises, or I want him to do all my banking. Josh, what do you think about this being the ChatGPT guy? And then we'll go back to Dan.
Yeah, you know, Sam Altman, he's also behind Y Combinator. He was the CEO over there for a long time. He's a clever lad. But this, to me, like just the name, like Dan said, it just brings him down a massive notch for me. Like this is like snakes and ladders sort of thing. He's climbed all these ladders. He's smashed on a snake right now, and he's sliding all the way back to block one with me. I don't know. It's just the weirdest thing. I don't know. I think Sam's a very clever guy. I think be wary, because wherever there's cleverness, like him releasing ChatGPT opened a lot of interest, especially amongst the elite, whoever the fuck that is. But a lot of very, very powerful people, including globalists, including all these sort of WEF types, are all in his ear right now, all wanting him. And you know, for him to now go around scanning everyone's eyeballs, as well as having the wealth of everybody's information, and, you know, that being the API for everybody's phone to replace Siri and to become your personal assistant, and everything that people have been using, and like it's been used a lot. Everyone I talk to, they all use it in their business now. So all that data, it's not going up there and being used as a once-off thing. It's getting sucked into the beast. So the guy is pulling a lot of data. He knows the value of data. And so, I think this being Sam Altman, I think the only person that I would trust less is probably Bill Gates. But it's yeah, wow, I don't know, man. I'm just totally suspect.
Yeah, it seems
Well,
like
and it's not just business data either. And I'll certainly say I'm guilty of this. You can ask ChatGPT any kind of question about your personal life, about what's going on in your human body, about how your mind or your brain is feeling, if you're nervous or anxious or in a hurry or whatever. You ask it that, and then I hope there won't be repercussions later when they print out my whole chat log. I imagine it's like everyone else's chat log, but that is very much tons of great data. Not just business, but also personal. Go ahead, Dan.
They didn't even need to print it out. They just asked ChatGPT for all the dirt on you.
Yeah. And didn't they find that there was leaking of data as well between, I'm sure I read about companies where they'd somehow stumbled upon other companies' data. And I think I even found this recently with a task I gave it, which was translating, for example, some terms and conditions. And there were, for example, 14 points in these terms and conditions. And it gave me another like 5 or 6 on top that weren't included. So it was kind of, it basically, it had taken extra information from somewhere and didn't just straight translate. It was giving me more information than I initially put in. Whether that was leaked from like perhaps another site that was doing a similar thing, I don't know. But it's gone kind of, I think it's actually gone a bit, GPT-4's actually gone a little bit downhill over the last few months. It seems to get a lot more confused. I don't know if you've noticed that. I have to be more strict with my prompts and stuff, and it goes off tangent, and we'll just start making stuff up, and there's totally
no. There's a paper that's come out of I think Stanford or somewhere that said that it's become worse over time. In simple math and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just seems like you've literally got to keep on ushering it back onto the track, like continuously. It started off kind of, really easily finding the task, complete your task. And now it just deviates continuously, and you've got to send it back, it deviates, and you've got to keep on sort of prodding it almost. And
look, it's worse than my wife. It always wants the last word. It's always. I was like, let me have the last word. Okay, no, okay, I will. Every time the last word has to be it.
But yeah, the thing about Altman as well, he seems like a fascinating character, but it seems almost sinister now, the fact that you hear he was behind, he was behind was it Y Combinator and then GPT-3, GPT chat or OpenAI, and now this WorldCoin where they're scanning your irises. It seems to me like there's too many things that are interlinked. Almost like, you whilst these global services sound great, they also leave you open to the worst, the most detrimental attack in terms of hacking your data, right? And if someone has that much of your data, they've got your ChatGPT data, your iris data, your spending data, all of this. The more data you give one entity, the more vulnerable you are. So it's he's obviously getting himself about. And the fact that this was done 2 years ago, right? It was 2021 that he did the initial funding for this.
Can I add something little here? This is some historical perspective for everybody. Now, the reason BitConnect got so big was because Bitcoin forked to Bitcoin Cash. And at that time, we didn't know what the ticker was going to be. Was it going to be BTC? Bitcoin BCC? Was it going to be BCC or BCH? And there was all this speculation. And people saw this BCC coin way down in the market cap, like 3,000 or something, and said, that's going to be it. But that was BitConnect. And so BitConnect started pumping, and then like, what's this coin that's pumping? Oh, BitConnect. And then that got promoted to all hell. So that's how it got big. It got big because people confused it with the new fork of Bitcoin Cash. So what I'm saying here, and this is not financial advice, but a lot of people will think that the old Worldcoin, which is probably trading somewhere, is the new Worldcoin, and maybe holding a little bit of that might go up.
You shilling Worldcoin?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just saying the stupidity of the crowds
Yeah,
fucking
no.
up the wrong ticker symbol and buying the wrong thing is probably inevitable.
Yeah, don't
And
go buy any from xt.com.
I don't know what that is.
It is strange that they'd reuse a name from the past.
Hmm.
And remember, Josh, during the Bitcoin Cash debacle, they actually wanted BTC. They wanted the name Bitcoin. They wanted the ticker symbol Bitcoin BTC. They wanted the whole thing. They wanted to be Bitcoin. So, exit question: does Worldcoin, and I'll stop calling it Worldcoin 2, even though I think it is. Does Worldcoin have legs? We're critical of the orb. We're critical of it here. We were critical of Ethereum. We called it a security. It's later been labeled a security, but it's too big to fail. It's too big to attack. Is this one of those things that we're going to have to talk about again? Is it coming back 6 months, a year? Josh, are we going to still talk about the new Worldcoin?
If OpenAI and Sam Altman wasn't behind this, I'd say we won't hear about it again. It's a hype train pump and dump scheme. Because he is behind it, it means there's a hell of a lot of money behind it. Because there's iris scanning involved and it's him, I think there's going to be a lot of powerful people wanting to push this. I think we'll hear about it more, and don't touch it with a barge pole.
Dan, Eve, what do you think? I'm looking at the top 4 coins. It says Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, and Litecoin. Are we going to add Worldcoin to that list? Is this like Megacoin and Fastcoin? Everything else comes back too?
What's up?
Bitconnect.
I think I'm sad. Sadly, I think I'm with Josh. I think we haven't even got started on this hype train yet. I think it's going to go. I'm not sure about the price going mental, but I think it's just going to envelop all these kind of crazy people who want to get their eyes scanned, get some free coin, thinking it's the next Bitcoin. It's going to follow that cycle of all these other crazy things that have popped up. And there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of huge existing parties. There's a lot of big, huge names behind it. I don't think it's going to just peter out of existence. I think this is going to be around for a while. Whether it's successful or not, I don't know. This could be the thing that literally makes optimism. At the moment, optimism doesn't really have much going for it other than being a layer 2 with like less liquidity than all the other layer 2s and blah, blah, blah. So this could be one of the driving factors that actually makes optimism pump. As obviously it's the network that Worldcoin.
Well, it's a network that's bringing pessimism. That's what I think.
But I do think it's going to be around for a while, and I think sadly we're going to be talking about it, and there's going to be some crazier stories coming. There's going to be lots of drama with this one. It's going to be a giant Pandora's box.
Well, the funny thing is, I've heard
brown eye.
Apparently, Americans aren't even getting the airdrop.
So
Americans are scanning their eye, doing all this, and they get nothing. They get nothing for it. Like it's because the SEC are going to drag them in front, saying, "Oh,
you can't give
you
money.
can't offer something." It's just, oh man.
No, I agree with the panel. I don't think it's going away. I think that we're going to see him much like Sam Bankman-Fried on the cover of Fortune magazine, on the cover of Forbes, on the cover of INC, or if they still have these things, and he'll be holding this orb. They'll all be about the physical device that he made, a shiny circular device that looks really nice, looks like an Apple product, looks like something you might put on your shelf. What a beautiful orb I have. People are going to love it. And then, like Josh said, like others have said, if you give someone the coin, they become a supporter of the coin. They start checking the price, not of Bitcoin every day, but of the price of Worldcoin 2 or whatever every day. So there'll be a bunch of those. Then there'll be a bunch of other people that are paid by people to shill this. They're probably going to show up in our comments today. So yes, I fear this is not one that's going away. This is a continuing, ongoing nightmare. And that's to say nothing about Worldcoin database hacked, Worldcoin orbs hacked, Worldcoin secret embedded code inside of orb sends hashes of your iris scan to secret database. This is all going to happen allegedly in the future. We will go ahead and predict that. So
or price down massively because every week there's an airdrop and it gets totally diluted. now the SEC drags Sam Altman in front of, first we have Sam Bankman, screw everyone. Now we have Sam Altman pumping the altcoins. It's just, what's with these Sams?
You can't write the story. Just like every late night talk show host is named Jimmy. But that's, of course, something that happened before the writer's strike. No one even thinks about that anymore. It's very sad. Moving on to issue 4. Redditors hacked Bitcoin is a lesson on the hidden dangers of paper wallets. And this is a very sad story. A Reddit user thought he was doing the right thing, using proper practices, creating a paper wallet. As we know, we haven't really suggested paper wallets since, as the article says, in 2019, the randomizer of the paper wallets was called into question, as well as if you're using some random website, you really can't trust it. That's why most Bitcoiners have gone away from paper wallets and use something like a Trezor or a Ledger. Dan Eve, what do you think? He lost all his Bitcoin. He had a paper wallet. It seemed like a good plan, but it didn't pay out.
Oh, it's savage, and he even thought that he used this service and he did the offline thing. He air gapped his computer, took it offline, and then generated his private key and seed. I think it was a private key, and then he got hacked. And this is really sad because someone who thinks they followed the process and done the right thing, and yet they've still been they've been succumbed to a vulnerability. But it goes back to the old. Trusting in a website, right? You're trusting in the software to produce that private key for you, and it may not happen in immediately that you get hacked. They might wait a year, as happened to this person, but because they want it to spread as much as possible before they actually hack people, before they actually pilfer all the money. And who knows how many other people have been hacked in this kind of same scenario,
and they don't even know it yet.
And they don't even know it yet. Exactly. Yeah, they either haven't checked their balance, or they be long-term savings they just don't want to sort of look at, or they haven't even linked it to this, and they thought that they just they put their private key somewhere where they shouldn't have done. But it is a really difficult thing about it's such a huge responsibility, and I've mentioned it before, like when I've had to changing your ledger, like your seed or your Trezor seed. That act of going from one to the other, it gets more intense each time that you have to, even if you've got nothing, like even if it's a couple of $100, you're like, I've got to generate the seed again, and how do I do it? And do a fresh install of Linux, do Tails install, and then do the key generation from an air gapped Tails Linux machine. And is that safe enough? And if I'm writing it down, what if a camera see me? What if someone's filming via my computer, or my phone accidentally went over it like this, and now my seed's somewhere, and if I put it in this place? It's a really difficult act to do. I think it's quite challenging to feel secure when you're doing it. Someone in the article, they said, well, I hate to say it, but this is why custodians are kind of good, and it kind of if you do have that level of fear of generating your seed, and because you've got to trust in someone, again, you've got to, this whole thing is
that's the thing.
Bitcoin being trustless. You've got to trust in so many different third parties. You've got to trust in the computer, the hardware, the software. You've got to trust in the software, the hardware wallet. You've got to trust in the key generation. You've got to trust in almost everything that you use. And you have to battle through all of these different layers of trust to get into the trustless network. It's really obscure when you think about it that way. It's sad to see people lose their keys, and maybe this is really why Ledger, for example, have the service, because yes, you don't want, lots of people don't want their private keys being held by a third party in any way, but then there's lots of people who are still crapping themselves about holding their own money. Oh, I lost my car key the other week. How am I going to keep hold of something that could turn into $1 million? So they do want to put their trust in a third party. You know, it's like my mum's always said, you know, if I, you know, if I can't hold my own Bitcoin, if I had it, I'd have to have someone that I could phone and shout at when something goes wrong. You know, she doesn't want to end up shouting at herself if she were to lose her private keys or something like that. So people like using a third party service, you know, and they like the ability to offset that risk, to have someone else think about the processes that are behind it. And there's this trade-off you have of trust between trusting in a service to generate your private keys, trusting in a hardware wallet to keep your crypto safe, trusting in the bank that holds your seed phrase. You know, you're putting trust in all these different parties. So I can see why there's that appeal of using a service like, I'm not trying to justify it in any way, obviously, but as Trezor said, right, they've essentially, anyone who makes a hardware wallet, almost anyone, has got a backdoor to the private key. All it needs is the seed phrase. All it needs is a software update, and that can be extracted. So again, this trusting in trustlessness, trustlessness. It's like I don't know, it's like a tongue twister. But yeah, very sad that you can use your private keys. I've never seen a great, you know, there's been plenty of examples of how you could store your seed phrase, but there's always holes you can pick in them, not in the way that someone's presented it, but in how a very easy human error could mean that you end up giving your private key out accidentally. And I'm not talking about you know, going on some stupid email that says, hey, this is Coinbase or Trust Wallet and Meta, whatever it is, MetaMask, and you need to give us your private key because we've changed software. I'm not talking about those hacks. I'm talking about just misplacing your seed phrase or putting it in somewhere where you think is insanely not inobvious, but is actually really obvious. So yeah, there's all these questions that kind of that you know, bake my gizzards when it comes to like how to store a seed phrase carefully. And yeah, you've just got to have your wits about you and do a lot of research. I think do a lot of research and do what you're comfortable with. And if you are comfortable with a third party, I'll probably get killed for saying this. Like, you know, just let people like trust in a third party sometimes, every now and then. If it's something like, you know, that if you can't be trusted, you can't trust yourself, because you, at least then, you know, I'm not saying keep on exchanges because that's bad, but maybe use a service that's a bit more kind of secure than you know, some site off the internet. If you are going to get into it, and then as your learning evolves, then you evolve the way that you store your seed phrase and store your coins. You know, you start off initially, it's a learning process until you get to a stage where you're comfortable with how you're storing your seed. It's like this, it's like your soul. It becomes your soul, and your soul needs to be in a good place and a safe place.
I just think it's important that people use modern and new tutorials, especially with new software like Bitcoin. I know I've made a couple of paper wallet tutorials. I'm not sure. I don't usually take videos down. Maybe I should make them private now or something. Just make sure people don't use those, because obviously they're outdated and we didn't know at the time that we were making them. I know Andreas used to recommend paper wallets all the time until we found out about this JavaScript randomizer error. And it's such a specific thing, such a hardcore thing to know about. I don't think most users would think about it or know about it. Like you said, Danny, downloaded, he air gapped his computer. He's doing all this stuff. He's trying to be, you know, what we call a good Bitcoiner with the whole hold your own keys thing and all that. But it ends in disaster. So you got to have new tutorials. You got to have fresh information, especially with a cutting edge technology like Bitcoin. We don't even use the same address space anymore. I mean, you have these new BC1, BC2 addresses, the new SegWit addresses and so forth. So much has changed even in just a few years. You can't trust your money to an old tutorial or just going to walletgenerator.net, which I don't think has been updated in years. If it doesn't look like it's been updated, if it looks like an old website, don't trust your money to it.
It was sold in 2017 and put some dodgy crap in it, apparently, is what I read. But yeah, I have a girlfriend of mine. She has a paper wallet, so I better let her know to to sort that out. But yeah, it's unfortunate. You know, the paper wallets used to be the great thing. You know, that along with, you know, brain wallets were interesting, but they're dangerous because if you bang your head and forget, and it's very easy to forget. And a brain wallet, for those that don't know, is basically remembering your seed phrase. But yeah, very, very unfortunate story. Luckily, it was only $3,000, but still, you know, I think this is what Bitcoin.com and Bitcoin.org and these sorts of places should really help with newbies. You know, showing them the newest technology. You know, these namespaces like Bitcoin.com and .org. They really, especially .org, should always lead people to the right things, and I think they do. But I mean, I've even heard of old Trezors which are like a bit too old now, and they cannot get upgraded without deleting the seed. So, and if you don't know if you have the seed or not, you can't even check if the seed works because the thing's too old. And the software, when you plug it in, it's like, this is too old, it needs upgrading. So yeah, it's look, this is a and it's getting harder to say, boys. I got to say, it's getting harder to say this is a new technology. This is a new thing. It's still growing. No, it's not actually. We're like what, 13 years old? Like it's not new anymore. And we should have ironed out these kinks. We should have made it easier by now. The UX should be easier. But this is the use case for these custodians. And that's what sucks, is that the open source community haven't done a good enough job, and it's driving fools into the hands of centralized authorities like Coinbase. And look, Coinbase have actually been fairly good actors if you discard the reporting everyone to the IRS and all this other stuff. But they've been fairly good actors in the fact that they haven't run off with people's coins, and same with Binance actually. So you know, but the unfortunate thing is that centralized custodians are being trusted more and more by people because they read stories like this. And anyway, even doing this, like, you have to jump through so many hoops. And Dan is just spot on, and I've said it for years. This bullshit that Bitcoin is trustless is such a farce. It's like saying electric cars are green. It's just nonsense. They're fun to drive. You can say that. They're the best. I've got one. I love it. And, you know, but they're not green. Like, it's just not. And so to say that Bitcoin is trustless isn't, because of all the software needed, unless you're a full-on boffin that can write the code yourself from scratch. And even then, you have to trust yourself and your skill sets. So there's no such thing as trustlessness. There's just trustlessness. And that's what you're trying to get to, is trusting less in certain things. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, my 2 bits.
Well, Josh, I want to defend the open source committee just a little bit, the community. As Andreas used to say, we've had physical security for thousands of years. Vaults, locking up things, having guards, multiple copies of things in multiple vaults, splitting up your money, things like this. We've only had computer security for like 20, 30 years here, 40, 50 years maybe as I get older. So it is very difficult to keep a secret on a computer, right? As easy as we might say, we just don't have the secure chips, the secure enclaves, the privacy chip, all the things we've talked about as possibilities to solve this problem. We just don't have them. Hopefully they're working on them and it gets better. But right now it's easier to keep something in a physical vault, in a bank, or a safe deposit box or whatever, than it is to keep it on a computer, especially a computer that's connected to a network of other computers. But it's getting late. We're running out of time. Dan and Eve, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
So my story of the week was attending the Avon Valley Bitcoin adventure, which was really cool. Victoria Jones is there from Satoshi's page, and obviously WCN's Ben Ark, doing a good Ellen Bits and Noster presentation and some other cool stuff. where they had like people. There was even like a Bitcoin hairdresser. There was some cool, like I really got a cool action. What's it called? Like a comic, like a Bitcoin comic. Yeah, just a really cool like conference with little mini conference, lots of like families there and stuff, because it was in this little kind of Avon Valley country park with soft play and all sorts, which I couldn't drag the kids away from because it was like open until like 10 o'clock at night, so it was like impossible to get the kids out of. And but it was really cool, so I'd recommend going next year. I think the organizer, he was saying that he might not do it next year, and I was like, man, it's like the halvening. It's the halvening year next year. You can't not do a Bitcoin conference in the halvening year. So hopefully it's still on. But yeah, that was a really cool conference, and again, nice to meet up with Ben and Victoria and some other Bitcoiners as usual.
Josh Shigala,
Yeah.
prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah, my story of the week was basically the same thing. It was 2 weeks ago, and it's such a good time at the Mallorca blockchain days. It was really great to see my good friends Thomas and Dan and Ben Ark and Victoria and a whole bunch of other people. So shout out to them. I won't dox them all and their names, but you know who you are. And yeah, it was sensational. We had a really great time. We had a lot of really important talks about where this technology is going. We like to think that we have some sort of sway because all of us together know a whole bunch of other people in this space, and it's important to have these conversations. What's happening with CBDCs? What's happening with FedNow? What's happening with crypto, with KYC? What's happening? Where is the creep coming in? And we discuss these points, and hopefully they stem out. And we had Peter Todd there. Peter's an old timer in this. He was in there arguing with Satoshi back in the day, and we had a lot of really strong voices in the space all come into one place over on Mallorca, or Majorca, as they like to say. Majorca. The Walter isn't what it ought. So yeah, it was really good. So you guys, if you get time to book some time in for next year, Mallorca Blockchain Days is a really strong, good conference. Make sure you book the full ticket where there's a boat ride at the end. It's a bit more expensive, but totally worth it. We have a great time going out on the boat and throwing our treasures overboard and then reporting it to the cops lost. So I'm just kidding, but it's a really good time. Do yourself a favor.
I agree, Josh. It was a great time at Mallorca, and I'm still in Europe. I went back to Barcelona for a little bit. Recently, I've been in Rome, and tomorrow I'm going to Venice. So got to shut this down, pack my bags, get up early, and go to the airport. So it's fun to be out and about and traveling. I did the big tourist things this time, took down the Sistine Chapel and the inside of the Colosseum. So great time to be traveling. It's a little warm, not as warm as it could be. It was worse last week, so I dodged a bullet there. But thanks to everybody for watching. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below, add a comment. Hello to everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, bye-bye.